Today we have the lovely Raj Ghatak with us, and we are going to be speaking about his career so far, including him on stage, screen, and voiceovers. And we're going to be talking about representation in the industry from Bombay Dreams to now. So welcome, Raj.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for giving a time up to talk to me today. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's a perfect day to stay inside.
Yeah,
it's wet, it's cold, and today's a good day. I'm on the up part of the Corona coaster. So
fantastic. That's great to hear. Yeah, it's kind of the weather's not the best, but I'm just like the weekend's coming, so I'm just like cool.
Yeah, 2 more days of doing exactly the same thing.
Exactly, and then back to Monday.
Yeah.
But if you could just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, who you are, and where it all started for you. I like to ask everybody that.
Sure. My name is Raj Ghatak. I'm an actor and voiceover artist. I'm born and bred in London. Where it started for me was I was working professionally as a child whilst I was at school. And my interests were always equally split between medical sciences and performing arts. Medical sciences, as every good Asian child should be. But when it came to choosing my subjects, I really wanted to be an actor. It's the only job I've ever wanted to do. But I didn't see anyone that looked like me on the TV. And I would go and see shows. There was no one in the stage. You know, my family or school, we would go on school trips. And I would talk to people about it. And they would say, well, you could do, but what are you going to do? Who are you going to play? And I think that is where the first seed of visual representation started for me. Because if you can't see it, you don't know you can be it.
Exactly.
And so what I did was then follow the medical science route, and I actually went to train to be an osteopath. Because I just thought, okay, you know, there's no hope. There's no one that looks like me. And I got there and I just thought, this isn't me. I'm a heart person. I'm not a head person. And I was just really unhappy doing training to be an osteopath. It's a great course and osteopaths are brilliant. And I go and see an osteopath regularly. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And so then I went back and retrained. And then I was happy. And then I went out into the big wide world. And I started doing shows kind of that were on stage at like Waterman's Art Centre and stuff like that, which were very much in the goodness gracious me ilk. This was kind of around that time. So
that all sort of started.
Yeah, so it was all comedy sketch shows. It was me and another guy. It was 2 guys, 2 girls, and we were everything. You know, we were young men, old men, women. We played the lot, and it was great because the speed at which you need to play those roles. And then that moved on to Bombay Dreams, and then Bombay Dreams worked as a trampoline, really, as a platform. And, you know, that was a long time ago, but it's still a show that is discussed and talked about. I think it's remembered fondly. I mean, I certainly remember it fondly. It was an amazing experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you mentioned that. Obviously, that was, I think, about 20 years ago, and
not quite.
Was it not? Oh no.
19.
Okay, 19.
Yeah, 2002 was when it started.
Okay, 19 years. I think I saw it actually. I was 5 years old, but there are little bits that I still remember, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so glad I remember little bits from 5 years old. But it's really interesting that you mentioned that it's still spoken about, because I've been in conversation with other South Asian creatives, and they still refer to like Bombay Dreams, and I guess it just shows that there's not that many shows out there, you know,
Yeah, you can count them on one hand, and the thing is
exactly.
Bombay Dreams, because of the scale at which it was done, and you know, it's in the theatre that Wicked is currently playing in. It was at the Apollo Victoria, so it's a 2,200-seater. So the thing is, it was a big show, and it was a landmark show. It broke through the glass ceiling, and you know, the thing about visual representation, and I say visual representation because I'm in front of the camera or something like that. Behind the camera, there is hardly any representation. at all.
Mm.
You know, and when I'm working on a TV set or a film set, it's something that I'm looking at. Okay, what's the demographic? What do they look like? Who's who? It's not really there. I mean, Steve McQueen, famously, when he was doing Small Axe, wanted an all-black crew. And the BBC reportedly spent thousands on trying to find an all-black crew, and they couldn't find one because there weren't enough people to populate it. So similarly, for us, it's like that. And I have since been in shows and done workshops, and someone has come up to me very quietly and they've just said, I just want you to know I saw you in Bombay Dreams, and seeing you on that stage gave me permission to be an actor. And the first time I was told that, I got so choked. It still kind of gets me now, because at the time, you don't understand the significance of it. You're an actor doing a job, and you're very pleased to be doing the job. And what was lovely doing a show like Bombay Dreams is that you'd look out into the audience and you'd see our people.
Yes.
You would see brown faces in the audience, because for a large part of the time, I'm in the industry, so I'll go and, in the olden days, I would go and watch a lot of theatre when we were allowed to. So I still look at the demographic, and it's normally just me, maybe a couple of others, you know, and I'm there sometimes because I'm my friend is in the show, so I'm supporting them in the show, or I'm, you know, just interested. But you know, people say, well, Asians don't go to the theatre that much. Why would they? Where's the commonality? They don't see themselves.
Exactly, and they're not gonna, you know, people want to see themselves represented on screens because they're going to connect to that a little bit more. And what would you say sort of is one of the most important things about representation and seeing people who look like us on screen for you?
One of the most important things about representation is firstly seeing us, but seeing us in a positive context. A lot of the time, especially as Asians, we're the number 2, the number 3 in the cast. You know, we're the best friend, we're the thing. And it feels like there's a tick box. Now, in terms of casting, there has been a seismic shift, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if it's even like the last 2 years, even you look, it's really changed. Going back a few years, Act for Change was set up. They were looking at doing things. And then in 2019, the Stage newspaper did a survey of the diversity population within the West End. And, you know, and if you think as Asians, we are the second largest demographic in the country after white British. We form, as it was then, 6.9% of the country. Well, we're not 6.9% on screen. And if we are on screen, we're kind of somewhere in the background or to the sideline. And so therefore, you know, it's rare that an Asian will be regarded for a romantic lead.
Yeah. Exactly.
How many romantic lead Asian roles can you see? Nikesh Patel is doing great work. He's doing that. Prasanna was great in the second series of Dr. Foster. There aren't that many unless it's an Asian-led drama. You know, if you're looking at a mixed demographic, Raza Jaffrey was doing it as well. So there are some, but again, you're counting it on one hand. Riz, you know, it's one-handed thing. So I think for me, visual representation is important in a positive context. Yes, it's great that we're now there, but now let's move that forward. Because when people talk about representation, a lot of the time it's like, oh, we've got one, you know, and that might be a black actor or a dual heritage actor. And if people are talking about mixed race or dual heritage, it tends to be a black mix as opposed to any other kind of dual heritage or mixed race, you know. And one thing I tend to talk about in terms of representation on screen is not about what race is on screen, because we're all the same race with a human race. It's about what ethnicities are on screen.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that just shifts the paradigm ever so slightly, because if you talk about different ethnicities on screen, then you're really able to deconstruct and look at percentages and roles. And you'll find that we're not really there. We're there in current affairs. We're there as news presenters or, you know, and things like that, but not in drama. In drama, I think the BAME, I hate that phrase. It was shown that, well, it's just a name that has been foisted upon us.
Yeah.
So I think it was shown that within drama, and this was from the Diamond Diversity Report, that BAME, or people of colour representation, was down to 5.6%.
Which is not what, as you said, which is not what the population of the UK is. And I completely agree in the sense it has moved forward, but you know, we are still seeing us portrayed either as stereotypes or in kind of more of a negative light. And there's sort of a quote where I was like, I just want us to, you know, be South Asian actors instead of just playing South Asian actors based
what
on
you
race.
want to be, what you want is to happen to be, but not defined by.
Exactly.
So you happen to be a person of color, but you're not defined by that. You and I, and our contemporaries who were born and brought up in this country, we've had to forge our own way between the two cultures in which we were brought up. You know, in the Indian parent, in my case, Indian parents, and the British society in which we live in. So being British Asian will be a different thing to different people because their experience is going to be different. There will be commonalities, not going to be the same.
No.
And so now it is starting to change, but it's starting to change because also writers of color are coming through. So writers of color are able to tell our stories because they've lived our stories.
Exactly.
They're from the inside looking out.
Yeah, and it's from a completely different lens. So that is going to make, you know, you as the actor connect to that specific piece of writing a little bit more. And you're like, oh my God, I can actually play this in a really, really authentic way. And I know you sort of have mentioned that it's changed, but obviously doing, you know, Bombay Dreams 19 years ago, what are the biggest changes that you've seen in representation that you didn't have back then and you're like, oh my God, it's kind of there now? Or is it a little...
I think one of the biggest differences, if we were to use Bombay Dreams as a case in point, the principal roles, the lead roles, we were all Asian or part Asian, mixed race, dual heritage, for example. So Raza Jaffrey is dual heritage. Priya is of Indian parentage. I'm of Indian parentage. Aisha Dhaka of Indian parentage. So there were, you know, that's how it went. But once it got to the ensemble, they really looked. And at the time, they couldn't find enough musical theatre performers that were of a West End standard that could sustain 8 shows a week for a year.
Okay.
So what we ended up having in the ensemble, brilliant people, wonderful dancers and musical theatre performers who, honestly, when you talk about triple threat, you look at a musical theatre performer and what they can do and the speed in which they can pick it up is quite breathtaking. Yeah, and I say that as someone who's not a musical theatre performer. So we ended up actually having, we had Spanish, Italian, Greek, you know, they were olive skinned. And because a lot of the time in the show they would wear wigs, and you know, you put them in the costume, so you may not have seen it so much. Whereas now, with the advent of other shows, you know, you had Bend It Like Beckham in town, you know, you've got other things, and now I would argue that if you were to restage that show, and there's always talk of Bombay Dreams coming back. I know they did a workshop.
No way.
Yeah, they did a workshop of it last year. But the script is going to need some tweaks just to modernize it. But I would say now, if you were to restage the show and audition, you probably would be able to find plenty of people, because if you look at the cast of Aladdin, you know, there were people in Aladdin. And so now there are people out there, I would say.
Yeah. I think, yes.
And that's a joyous, joyous thing. About a month ago, I did a voiceover job, and there were 5 of us, and we were all Asian. I don't understand the South Asian thing. South of what? When did we become South Asian? Who lumped that title on us? It's like BAME.
It's kind of just appeared like out of nowhere.
And there were 5 Asian or South Asian voiceover artists, including me. I've never had that in my life. It was a real line in the sand benchmark moment. And we were all socially distanced because we were in a booth in a recording studio. So I was kind of trying to get us all in to take a photo, and I Instagrammed it.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on my Instagram feed, and I did hashtag brownies in the booth because,
Yeah.
I've never experienced that. And the script was sensitively written. They were talking about Mahatma Gandhi and lots of other different things. Really well written. Rachel Petladwala, Homer
Mm.
Todiwala, and there are a couple of others, and you just kind of go, well, and especially in voice, it doesn't matter what you look like.
No,
It's
that's the
about
thing.
sound.
Yeah,
So why is it
definitely.
happening?
Exactly. Well, I think that's amazing that you had that space to share with other people, of your heritage, and it must have felt another level of kind of empowerment. And going on from your voiceover, if you could just like talk a little bit about your voiceovers and audiobooks and what your favorite thing about doing that is.
My favorite thing about doing voiceovers is that you can turn up for work looking like a mess and it doesn't matter. And certainly in lockdown, I was doing a lot of voiceovers from home, because when we were in lockdown, everything stopped. And I'm one of the excluded. So I've received no financial assistance from the government in this whole time. So I've been very lucky in that I've been able to work my way through lockdown. And so with voice or with audio work, like visual work, it's such a broad spectrum, and that you approach each job differently. So if you're doing a corporate voiceover for an internal thing, you would use a different sound and a different muscularity to if you're doing a commercial for cat food, or if you're doing an audiobook. Now, if you're narrating an audiobook, and Audible .co.uk is where you'll find a lot of the audiobooks, and you can you can hear a sample of any book that you want to. You could either type my name in as a narrator, or if there's a title of a book that that you want to hear, and they allow you, I think it's like a 4 or 5 minute sample, and you can choose whether you want to listen to it or not. And audiobooks are hard. They're not for every actor because you've got to prep the book.
Yeah.
And when you prep the book, you're not paid for that prep time. So you're doing that in your own time. So your pay is normally done on a per published hour, per finished hour. So you're paid for how long the finished product is. So that doesn't matter if it's going to take you 2 days to record or 2 weeks to record. It's just how long the finished product is.
Oh, right. So the prep time doesn't go, it's just the product
doesn't count, the recording time doesn't count. So that's why for some people they don't like doing audiobooks. And also for audiobooks, you have to narrate you have to narrate the book, but you also have to be man, woman, child, and beast. You have to be every single character. I did a book by Neil Mukherjee, which is called The Lives of Others. And that was set in Kolkata, which is fine because my parents are from Kolkata. So so that was good, and it had Bengali and it had Kolkata Bengali and all of those things. So we kind of did that. But then one of the characters, there was a moment in the book where one of the characters goes to visit a prostitute, and the way it was written, I had to narrate the visit, but then also voice a 15-year-old female prostitute trying to defecate on their client.
Oh, wow. So it was a switch.
So you're then having to narrate the text, and then go straight into the character, then come back out, play the male character, and then go back. So it takes a shift of focus.
Yeah. Is there anything, transitioning between doing the voices? Do you have any specific technique, or it kind of comes naturally to you?
There is definitely technique. Absolutely, there is. It's a profession, just like any other profession. And there are some actors who are only voice actors. They won't do anything else. And they, so in terms of tips and things, the night before, don't eat too much spicy food. Don't have gassy drinks. Make sure you're hydrated. Have lots and lots of water, because normally, if you're doing a book, a typical recording day will be you're in the chair at 9:45, you're ready to record at 10, and then you read right through till 6 o'clock. You'll have 1 lunch break and 2 tea breaks. That's it. The rest of the time you are narrating. So
Mm.
therefore you need to make sure that you've got enough food in your stomach, because if your tummy rumbles, the microphone will pick it up.
Yeah.
And my stomach is a rumbler.
Oh,
So
same.
also avoid kind of dairy products, because they can clag. Chocolate will give you clag. Apples are good if you get quite dry mouth. Just take a bite of an apple, and that
Okay.
gives you moisture.
Yeah.
And when it's been coming up to lunchtime and we've just wanted to kind of get to the end of a chapter, I've had to narrate a book with a cushion. I've been holding a cushion over my stomach because the mic is picking up the tummy rumbles. But you've got to make it sound like nothing's happened.
Yeah, exactly. Because
So there's definite technique. And similarly, for a corporate or a commercial, you'll get sent the script. So when you're, certainly for the last year, most of it has been at home, in recording from home. You need to be ready. You need to be ready. And with animation, they'll give you an indication of what the character types are, and they're a lot more extreme. So you need to find a voice or voice and accent, and it might be an animal. So I'm doing an animation where there are animals, and I'm being different animals. So how do you voice that? But also, how do you voice that in a way that you can sustain? Because if clenching on your vocal cords or you're shouting, that's very difficult to sustain. And so similarly, I would say, if you're doing an audiobook and you want to find the voice of a character, make sure that you're able to sustain it.
Yeah, so I guess find a way that's unique to you, but a voice that you can commit to,
Yeah, and yeah, that you can commit to it. It's believable, it's appropriate, and it's not going to tire your instrument out.
Because that's very, very damaging to
it can be.
Yeah.
But again, in terms of audio representation, I would say, and this is just my opinion, all of what I'm saying is my opinion, it's not the gospel truth. So there's my disclaimer. I would say that representation is still under. We're not there yet. There's still a lot more that needs to be done. In audio, I had a director who championed me, Barnaby Edwards. So there is a drama called The Warringham Chronicles, which is on Audible, and it's the longest audio drama in the world. In total, there are going to be 6 volumes. We've recorded 3, and I play the lead. And I play Robin of Warringham, who's blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
Yeah.
And we know that because the script tells us that.
Oh,
and I'm playing a knight of the realm, and it's set in the Middle Ages. Now, it's because Barnaby championed me and fought for me that I got that role. But the thing is, it doesn't matter what you look like, it's what you sound like.
Yeah, exactly.
But because he and I had worked together, he knew that I would be able to heighten my RP and make it a lot more appropriate for the time that it needed to be.
So, yeah.
And also, vocally, I needed to age from the age of 17 through to 50. So, you need to be able to do that. And so on that production, for example, there was all manner of size, shape, race, color, and creed. And there could be. And, I'm in a radio soap opera at the moment called Greenbourne. And again, that has a very wide cast, very diverse cross cast. And, my character is called Arjun, which we all know the significance of Arjun in the Mahabharata as South Asians. Mm-hmm. That may be lost on a Western audience. It doesn't matter. But my character in that happens to be, but not defined by.
But defined by his ethnicity.
Yeah, I happen to be Asian. I'm not defined by it. My character there has a Birmingham accent. So
yeah,
that's it.
That's what it is, because that's what he got. It's not, but it doesn't make up the character.
That's where he's from. It's not who he be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, love that.
Or want a expression. And I think for us as actors, and this is for the people that are in front of the camera, some people fall into 2 categories. Some people as actors, that's who they are. It's a job. They're able to shut the door and they'll go on and do other stuff. For a lot of other people, it's who they be. It's their being. Being an actor is vocational. And I probably identify in the latter category. You know, I can find it difficult to switch off, or if you do a meeting and it's a job that you really want, you know, that romanticism kind of can sweep me away.
Yeah, definitely. And would you sort of, I know you were talking about that there is that sort of lack of representation in voiceovers. Would you say that also there are enough actors of the global majority, or do you think it's that they're not getting those opportunities? Because I don't actually know too much about voiceover representations. It's really great that you're speaking about it.
I would say both. The actors are there. The actors have always been there. And so, you know, even 20 years ago, the actors were there to a point, you know, unless it was something specific like musical theatre ensemble. But the actors have always been there. And the actors have been good because we come from an immigrant background. So it's been drilled into us, I'm guessing, a lot of us, that we had to be twice as good as our white counterparts because we were brown. So therefore, we're doubly ready. We're ready. We've got the tools, we've got the skill set.
Exactly.
What we need is the opportunity. The people that I have worked with, some of the people that I've worked with, and the opportunities that they have been given, I haven't been afforded and a lot of it is because of the color of my skin. Now, that's not me being bitter. That's a fact.
No, and it's like we're all here. The opportunities aren't.
That's right. And so therefore, in terms of, you asked the question about would it be about actors being there or the skill set. They may not have the initial skill set, but you can teach yourself to get yourself match fit, to get yourself match ready. Because, like, for example, musicals. I didn't train in musical theatre. I trained in straight acting. But there was an element to it. But I knew that as a person of colour, if I could sing, then that's another string to my bow. And that's another avenue of potential work. And what happened? You know, I got to be a lead in the first Asian musical in the West End. I mean, prior to that, I got to be in West Side Story in the West End. I mean, that was amazing.
That was,
That was, you know, so it's up to the individual. All of what I'm saying is just my perspective. Some people know they only want to be a screen actor. Great, you do that, but you hone your craft. There are workshops and classes that you can do. The Actors Guild do them, casting workshops do them, mixing networks do them. And you can book in and, you know, you do a class. And now, obviously, everything's moved online. And so they will send you a script, you will learn it, do a self-tape, submit it, and the casting director or casting assistant will give you some feedback. And now, with the advent of modern technology, you could just do it on your smartphone.
They're so good qualities.
The BBC have got scripts available online that are out there. So, and they're free. So if you want to, and you want to practice, now is the time to do it. And this is what I saw, is it Kiasa's interview? He said made a really good point. You're not going to get this time back. So
no, you ever.
So the thing is, if you find yourself with some time, go to the BBC website, go and download a free script and rehearse with someone. Do it over Zoom, film it, do it on your phone. You can, you know, and it doesn't need to be Apple centric or whatever. Most phones, you know, I think like the Samsung camera is supposed to be incredible. I'm an Apple guy, so I don't know, but I've heard.
You know, I think that's quite good quality.
But also what I do want to say is that it's all very well saying, yeah, go and do this and be proactive and get out there. It's also important, especially with the last year that we've had, to acknowledge when you're feeling down and to acknowledge when you're feeling blue. And it's okay to do that. The pressure that I think we put on ourselves as Asian actors, as South Asian performers, or within the South Asian community, is huge, you know, and a lot of the time, I think, you know, we're hothoused from a very young age but if you look at why that happens, I was having this conversation with somebody. Our parents, like my parents came from India or wherever they're from, their because the population is so much larger, they had to work harder in order to succeed, to get those places, those good places at schools, at colleges, at universities, whatever the profession is. So I've heard it called the killer instinct. You've had to develop the killer instinct because you're in a population of 1.3 billion people. So they then come to the UK as immigrants with a skill set, and they worked really hard to provide for all of us what we have. And so that mentality is then transferred into us from an early age. But also that hot housing, certainly from an actor's perspective, is coming from a place of scarcity. It's not coming from a place of plenty. Mm-hmm. If we had historically the same amount of opportunities that the white British actors had, you wouldn't get this kind of almost stepping over each other, or, you know, it would be more cohesive because there's work for everyone. You know, and I do believe that what's meant for you will come for you. I believe in karma. I believe in all of those things. So if it's yours to get, it will happen. And it doesn't matter how much you want it. It really doesn't. There are other pieces to the jigsaw that happen. I worked in a casting office when I was between jobs. And so I heard some of the conversations, and people would come in and do an audition. We'd put them on tape. Some actors would do a great meeting. You know, they gave the best meeting that they could do. They came in, they presented themselves well, they knew their lines, they did the meeting well, and they left the room. They didn't stand a chance because they didn't fit the jigsaw for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I guess, I was sort of speaking to Caius about it. Like, you know, you can be the best actor, but if you're not right for that role or what their vision is, then you won't get that. And I guess that a lot of actors have that misconception of I'm not good enough, but it's, you know, you're not right for the role and the right role is out there. And what you sort of, you know, being in the South Asian community, that is always that added pressure of, I guess, wanting to prove yourself because of the lack of opportunities out there. So we have to sort of work as hard as sort of to get those. So it's really interesting that you touched on that.
I mean, do you find as well that as Asian artists, sometimes when you get a job or you do a job, you're not doing it only for yourself. You have the community expectation and the community pressure because of the nucleic way in which we've been brought up. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that we have.
It's kind of there. It's there, and it's like you feel like if you don't do the best performance, then you're letting out like the whole of the community. So I feel like it's good and bad because we shouldn't have to feel like that. But in a sense, we kind of, I mean, some people may disagree, kind of had that responsibility to prove that we're good enough for the industry and that we are out there.
I do also want to say about representation. A lot of the focus goes to casting directors as gatekeepers. Yes. Now, the CDG, which is the Casting Directors Guild, they have a policy about now being representative and diverse. So, and a casting director's memories are very, very long. You know, like you were saying, you know, if you don't get that one job, they will still remember you. They keep lists of people. But the thing is, it's also about the producers, the execs, and the channel. So the thing is, a casting director can change roles. They can, you know, make a male role into female or change the color of it. Or for this role, we're going to see people of color. But if the producers and the execs and the channel don't want it, there's only so much they can do.
They've only got so much power as they are given from the people at the top. Ultimately, it is the people at the top that is the main deciding factor. So I think it starts from the top and then it kind of works its way down.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, sort of, you've had quite a long career in both stage and screen. If you can talk a little bit about all of the stage work that you've done and how that experience has been for you.
I think with the stage work, because we're freelancers, each job is different. It might be in the same medium and that it might be stage, but each one is going to be different. So you never know what you're going to get, you know? And so walking into a job like Bombay Dreams, there was a real sense of excitement, also because the cast were, you know, a whole multitude of cultures and people, and it was exciting because we knew this had never been done before. So that was very exciting. I did a play called Hijra before Bombay Dreams, which was really daring, and that was done at the Bush, and that was written by Raj Ghatak. Which, it's the play text has been published. It's a brilliant, really funny. Another one that really stands out for me is my first play at the Royal Court, which was called Free Outgoing, which was written by Anupama Chandrasekhar, who was a brilliant playwright. She lives in India, and it was directed by Indu Rubasingham. And again, like, if South Asian actors are looking for pieces or looking for texts, these are places to look for, you know. Hijra, Free Outgoing, East is East, of course. You know, Free Outgoing was amazing for me because it was my first play at the Royal Court, and that was a dream. That was another dream come true. And I was working with Lalita Chakrabarti and Indu and, you know, Anu, and it was wonderful. And it was a play that was based on real events, so it was really set in something. So there was a sense of responsibility to portray that. So in terms of the stage work, it's very varied, going all the way up to Life of Pi. And, you know, I've worked internationally. I've worked in, you know, Jerusalem and Stockholm and Paris and Canada, Toronto and other places. So they're all adventures, because when you go somewhere else, you're like, oh, what's this city?
Yeah, it's kind of, it takes a kind of journey. Yeah,
and then I did The Kite Runner. I played Amir in The Kite Runner. So that was really exciting. It was a tough job for many reasons. But I was lucky enough to win an award for it, for winning Best Actor.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on your award.
But again, that was an Eastern Eye Award. That was an ACTA, which is Arts, Culture and Theatre Award.
Yeah.
And that's something that Eastern Eye newspaper have set up to celebrate our own achievements, because if we don't do it, other people aren't going to.
No, we're the ones who have to do that.
Right. And so you have the Black Theatre Awards, you know, they have that have been set up. So that was a huge experience, the Kite Runner. And then going into Life of Pi, which, you know, touch wood, will be coming into the West End in the autumn of this year, all things considered. But we did it at the Sheffield Crucible last year.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed that does make it.
Well, it is happening. We just need to know when it's happening.
Oh, when it's happening.
Yeah, and that was my second show at the Crucible. The first one, I did a musical called Everybody's Talking About Jamie. So that was fun.
And with all the theatre you've done, what's that kind of feeling like from, you know, finding out you've got the role and then being in rehearsals and then performing on stage? Because obviously it's quite a long process, and then sort of getting the response.
There's a famous saying that says the best part of any job are the first 5 minutes when you've got the job, which is when you get the phone call. When you get the phone call, that's the best part of any job.
I guess because you found out you've got it and you're like,
you've got the job, it's exciting, hurrah, all of those feelings. Then the doubt sets in. Then sometimes the nerves or the fear set in, and then you've got to do the work, you know. And the work is the fun part. I really enjoy rehearsals, because you're like, okay, well, let's try it this way. No, that doesn't work. Okay, well, let's try it that way. No, that doesn't work. So that's where the real creative process is. So for me, one of the highlights are when you get the job. And then the rehearsal process can be tough, you know, depending on the subject matter. So, for example, The Kite Runner, it's about Amir's redemption, about horrific events that happened. So the play of The Kite Runner starts at the end point and then goes back and then takes you and it jumps in and out, and it's beautifully written by Matthew Spangler. And so you have to take your play, you have to take yourself to a place that's dark. You have to really, you're describing child rape, you're discussing lying, betrayal. There's a lot there, trauma, and so to do that 8 shows a week, sometimes twice a day, that's difficult. And so you have to find ways of protecting yourself.
Well, no, thank you for sort of sharing what you mentioned about the doubt and also the difficulties, because I guess watching you can just think it looks so easy for the actors and they've got it all sorted, but you don't know the work that goes in behind the scenes. You're only presented with what you see on stage. So I think it's really important that you spoke about that and what actors kind of have to go through.
I think so. I think it's very easy to polish something and put a gloss over it, but actually, we as actors are sensitive people. That's why we're actors. That's what that's what our job is, to be sensitive.
We're empaths.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I'm not gonna react to you in terms of the lines, well then what's the point?
Exactly. You've got to react.
The opposite a telegraph post. So, but with that sensitivity sometimes comes vulnerability. And certainly within the last year, that was 2020, a lot of people, I've had very dark days. So I mentioned it right at the start, the Corona coaster. I think it's a real thing. There are days when you wake up and you're blue. I don't want to say depressed, because depressed is a condition, a clinical condition, a medical condition.
Realize down kind of.
Yeah, but I just feel really blue and I don't know why. And again, I think there is some freedom in admitting that and going,
oh, for sure.
And just going, it's not a good day. I'm just not having a good day. And yet within those good days, sometimes a self-tape will come in. So you have to generate yourself. You've got to learn the lines and you've got to set it all up and do the self-tape, or you've got to do a voiceover job. If you go to the moving forward, and in the olden days, when you go to a theatre, you don't care if that performer's cat has died. You want to see the show. Your job is to give them a show. They've paid money, so give them the show that you've been to do. And if we were talking about the West End, for a family of 4 to go to the West End, by the time you factored in ticket prices, travel, possible parking, programs, snacks, that's the cost of a holiday. So the way I see it is that I owe it to that audience who have taken time. And if you have a proper job, if you work in an office, you're skipping a meal to come to the theatre. So you'll see people outside a theatre, with a tinny and a bag of crisps, because that's their dinner, because they've chosen to come and see a show.
To spend their money on theatre.
Yeah, they've chosen, and you're part of that. You're one of those cogs in the wheel. So, when some people go, oh, I can't be bothered tonight, I'm going to phone it in, it makes my blood boil. It's not rocket science. We're not performing heart surgery.
Yeah.
If in terms of theatre, it's 2 hours. It's 2.5 hours of a day.
I know.
Admittedly, the remainder of the 22 hours of those 24 are geared towards getting yourself ready. And similarly, if it's for a musical, then you have to be careful of what you eat and what you drink, because you have to be ready. Yeah. So for the Kite Runner, I really had to watch my fluid intake, because once the show started, so for the Kite Runner, I was on stage for 2.5 hours. And I only had the interval to break. I was never off stage.
Oh, okay. So you're on stage for most.
I was on stage the entire time, narrating and speaking the whole time. That meant I couldn't use the loo. So I had to train my body. And you speak to most theatre actors, they'll tell you this. They will have trained their body to when they use the loo. Because if you go too early before the show starts, if you go at the quarter, then you might need the loo halfway through Act 1, and if you can't go, then you can't go. So for me, I had to train myself like a dog, know when I could go, and in the interval when to go, so that I then didn't need to go for the rest of Act 2.
Yeah, that's really, I guess I never thought about that, and it's something that people don't realise. But yeah, you've got to, especially if you're on stage for like most of the show, you are going to train your body when to use the toilet.
And similarly, if you're on set, a lot of the time, if you're in a period costume, you've got lots of layers under your costume, or you're in a corset. So you have to know not to eat too heavily, because your corset's going to squeeze you.
Yeah.
Um,
There's so many things to think about when it comes
yeah,
to the costume and props and all those sort of things.
yeah. So and that's part of the job. That's also that it's our responsibility. It's no one else's.
No, to know how to deal with those things and prepare.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at Bridgerton. So Bridgerton proved that if you have a diverse cast, people, they always said if you do it, people won't come. Well, that's proved. Now for the second season, you've got Simone Reynolds playing the love interest opposite Johnny. Opposite Johnny. So and that's a huge breakthrough for her. And I thought she was great. I really enjoyed her in the second series of Sex Education.
Yeah, she was incredible.
Really breaking boundaries, because I mean, some of the stuff that she was doing on screen, to see a South Asian,
you wouldn't have seen it in the past.
Yeah,
that is something that's really breaking boundaries, and I think it's those sort of taboo subjects, which is another thing that should be portrayed on screen as well, especially for, from a South Asian heritage point of view.
Yeah, and again, she happened to be not defined by.
Yeah.
And so, for those South Asian artists that are watching or thinking about writing something, we know that we're not defined by that. It's other people that define us by it. We're just us. It's just us, right? It's you, me, the rest of the fraternity. That's what it is. It's only quantifiable when it's measured against something else. So if you create a world, or you write a world where it doesn't have to be, well, then it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's just as simple as that. We don't need to make it overcomplicated, as how you said it. Well, no, thank you for sharing that. In a moment, we're going to move on to some fire round questions. But I know I realised that they were quite intense, the previous ones. I've made them really, really fun and more quick. But a question that was sent in by somebody listening. Let me find it. Oh, so they asked, how much of it would you say is carving your own path rather than just going by the book, or I guess what you've been told in the past?
Which book?
No. Okay. Yeah.
There is no book. There's no book for an actor, least of all a South Asian actor. So we're all having to carve our own path. We're all having to do that, because everyone's having to find their way through it. And this is also goes into like why you should never compare yourself to someone else, even if you start out at the same time, or all of that stuff. And that's easier said than done. But so in terms of carving my own path, I carved my own path because there was no precedent for me to follow. There were older Asian actors that were there, but through no fault of their own, they weren't as visible. When I entered the industry, I found them. But as outside of the industry, as a viewer, I wasn't privy to them. Similarly with the black actors, so like shows like Desmond's and things like that. I used to love watching on Channel 4 because there were people of color. There were all Afro-Caribbean stories. There were black stories. There weren't our stories, but they were brilliantly performed, deliciously funny. So I would say that there is no book. And for actors starting out now, either that are watching this or starting out, they are going to have to find their own way. Those of us that have been here before with shows like Bombay Dreams or various TV shows, we may have set a precedent, or we've shown that it can be done. But even then, that show was 20 years ago. There's only been like maybe The Far Pavilions and Bendit.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Doesn't count.
Count it on a few fingers. Like there's not many you can talk about.
So I would say, and that's musical theatre. In terms of straight theatre, there have always been a lot more productions. And there have been more productions. There are Asian theatre companies. You've got Tamasha, you've got Kali, you've got Tara. They're great sources of information. So they are good places to be. And also Rifco, of course, I've done several shows with Rifco. And they also run like a writers program, which is great as like a mentoring thing.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. You can submit your.
So in terms of finding your own path, I think there is that. I mean, maybe now if you were to start out, you could say that I would like to do this kind of job, or I would like to do that, and there's maybe a beaten path to it because other people have done that before. But certainly for me, I was going blind. I was making it up as I went along. Kind of the job offers were coming in and I would take the jobs, or, you know, and predominantly it was theatre. It wasn't too screen oriented.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I was told when I was younger I was a bit pretty. You know, as actors, you're too something and not enough of something else.
Yeah, you get like
so
typecast kind of.
You're too tall. You're not tall enough. You're too dark. You're not dark enough. You're too fat. You're too thin. You're too never. You're never like. Well, it's just me.
Yeah, never.
How's my screencraft? How's my accent? Oh no, your hair's the wrong color. Your hair's too long. I remember years ago being told I didn't get a TV job because my hair was too Bollywood. And I remember being furious because that was the start of racism.
Yeah, because what does that mean to Bollywood? Who?
Well, I was told that my hair was too Bollywood, and my response to my agent at the time, I said, "And did you fight for me?" And they said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, are white actors told they don't get jobs because their hair is too Hollywood?"
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, the people representing you need to be the ones also fighting for you. And I think it's important, you know, you said that you can be, I guess, inspired by the people out there, but ultimately you are marketing yourself, and
you are your brand.
You are your brand. And I think everyone finds their way into the industry in different ways, and opportunities can come. So I think it's amazing what you said about don't comparing yourself. It is easier said than done, but it's the work.
You will do it.
You will do it, exactly.
You will do it. I do it. Other people do it. I know very successful actors who we would look at and go, "Oh my God, you've had the most amazing career." They do it.
Yeah. And the thing is, you might be saying that about somebody else, and they could be saying the exact same thing about you. So, you know, I think that's a really great thing to end on. Just, you know, even people who are working out there are still comparing themselves. So just try not to.
Be kind to yourself. Just, you know, stay in your lane. You do you.
Yeah.
No one else can do you.
Exactly.
Focus on you.
Love that.
And also, there's this quote which you know, I think is quite powerful, which is, diminishing someone else's light doesn't brighten your own.
Yes, I love that. Which is, the same as also you supporting someone else. It doesn't put any thunder over your own path. So there's tie-ins.
Yeah. So if you trying to dim someone else's light, it doesn't make yours shine brighter.
No.
You know. And in the same way, as an individual, you shouldn't dim your light to be around other people either.
No, that's the worst thing to do.
So you be you. You do you. You're going to be, you know, you're a bright, talented, gorgeous individual. I mean, look how beautiful Asians are. South Asians.
Exactly.
We are stunning.
We are.
You know, the men and the women, like they're attractive, they're intelligent, they're articulate, you know, and stand up, be proud. And the thing is, we are proud. We know this.
We are
the frustration comes from the glass ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. Other people not being as proud. So
it's like, well, come on.
Exactly. That's a really good thing to end. Just be proud and just keep doing you. Okay, cool. Right, we're going to move on to the fire round questions. They're going to be really sweet. Okay, so the first one is, do you prefer sweet or savoury foods?
Savoury.
Savoury.
Exactly. I'm very much more crisps and things like that, as opposed to cake or biscuits and things like that.
Oh no, I'm the opposite. I've got a really sweet tooth.
Do you? What's your Achilles heel?
Oh gosh,
like,
just anything like, I love cookie dough. Oh my God, Domino's or pizza cookie dough. Like, I think it's like the chocolate in the middle for me. But really? I like crisp as well. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I kind of. I mean, I try and avoid gluten and stuff, so cakes and bread and things like that never really. But crisps. Currently, I'm going through a lentil crisp phase.
Oh, those are so good because they feel healthy as well.
Yeah. So lentil crisps. So later today, I'm going to be making some hummus, and I'm going to be making some guacamole, some
Oh my
guacamole,
god.
and I shall be indulging with that.
Oh
So
my god.
savoury,
Excellent.
definitely.
Fantastic. Okay. What would you say is your favorite season?
Summer.
Yeah.
I love the sun. I think it's a genetic thing. You know, we're
Mm,
brown. We have a genetic need to,
yeah.
to feel the sun. Yeah, I would say the summer for sure. When it's warm and sunny, and especially if you get to go on a holiday. I mean, I know none of us are going to get a chance to do that this year. Um, but just to walk by a beach,
Oh gosh.
with
Oh
a
no.
frozen margarita.
Oh stop. The
And
thing is, I
some
think
lentil crisps.
I
I'm
know.
getting a picture.
Ice cream. The thing is, when we all finally get to go on holiday, it's going to be the best thing, and we're never going to take it for granted again.
Yeah, yeah, truly.
Cool. Okay, next one. So this might make you think a little bit, but if you could live in another country, do you have any idea what that would be?
Mm. Well, America would be an obvious one for work.
Mm.
So, because I have a manager in the US, so
Okay.
that would probably help them. um, uh, do you know Australia is kind of fun? I went to Australia many years ago. I
Mm.
haven't, and I've always wanted to go back. I've always been fascinated by it. I don't know what it's like now, so I don't know whether I could live there. But
Yeah.
but Sydney has a big film studio there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Good opportunity, and it's the beaches are
Where would
incredible.
you go?
Probably New York or LA, as in to live. I
Yeah,
just because of like I'm a city girl and the opportunities and the experience.
same.
But also somewhere like Bali would be great, but maybe for a few months. But yeah, New York, LA.
Yeah, I think it would be the States. So did you mean country or did you mean city?
Oh wait, actually that's the next question, but I was gonna say anywhere. So any country.
Oh, so country, yeah.
Yeah.
So I also think India is a magical place. I'd love to travel
Mm.
around more of
Yeah.
India,
Yeah.
to do the Golden Triangle in Rajasthan. Um, there's a place in Kerala that I go to, which is an Ayurvedic ashram, which is amazing. So I kind of sometimes go there and just
Mm.
plug for 2 weeks, get some Ayurvedic treatment, some, South Indian vegetarian food. Can't,
Beautiful. Kerala is so beautiful. The
yeah,
greenery, the plantation, everything.
exactly. And Kolkata, Bengali food is tasty too. So
Mm. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so the next question is: do you prefer the city or the countryside? I guess more so in the UK.
city.
So,
Definitely. Also, I get hay fever quite badly.
oh,
So sometimes when we're in the country, I'm a townie. I'm a born townie, and some of my friends laugh at me like when we're in the country. I'm like, I've got no mobile reception.
I'm the same. I
Like,
just
why is this not working? I don't
I know.
understand. So they find it quite funny.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, final one. Would you rather only be able to whisper or only be able to shout? That's an interesting one.
Wow, that's like a psychologist's question.
Gotta throw one last in. I don't even know what I would do.
That's like a real psychologist one. I would say I would probably prefer this is like for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say this in universe, I don't want this. So I'm just answering a question
Don't jinx it.
because the universe always listens. So
Oh
you
god.
be careful what
I
comes out of
touch
your mouth.
wood. I touch wood.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you've got to be careful what comes out of your mouth. So
Yeah.
um, I would probably whisper.
Okay. Fantastic.
I
I'll
think.
probably shout.
Well, I think initially I went to shout, but then the thing is, I think that if you shout the whole time, I think sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I can't be asked." I
It's
know
so annoying.
they're just going to shout. Or if you want to have a conversation with someone, you've got to be somewhere where it doesn't matter what you're saying because you're
Mm.
going to have to shout it. So
Yeah.
I think maybe to whisper it might be more controllable.
Yeah. No. completely understand. Well, we're just about to reach an hour, so it might cut off, but
Okay.
we'll end it abruptly. But thank you so much, Raj, for joining me. It's been incredible. I think we discussed so much, from theatre to voiceovers, and obviously touching from representation and how it's changed. So I just want to say a massive thank you for taking your time to be here today. I hope you enjoyed speaking to me.
Thank you for having me. Keep up the good work. You
You.
have created this platform for South Asian artists which didn't exist before. So that's all down to you. Well done.
Thank you so much. And, thank you for your sort of ongoing support as well. And just to let you know, everyone, this will be out on Friday, the 2nd of April. Keep an eye on my socials because I will be announcing more guests to come. Well, thank you very much, Raj, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.